Welcome.
You are watching Line Screw 1.
Even when my teardrops start to dry, even when the sun begins to shine again, taking all the advice there is and none of it has helped. Experience has made me realize that I won't build my life on empty words. Being so damn naive, it only hurts.
Well, hello tubers, hope you're doing well wherever you are in this crazy YouTube universe. Today I'm coming to you from the Canada-US border. In that direction is the excited states of America. In fact, that ditch right there is US of A, and where I'm standing here is in Canada. Beautiful day here in the Columbia Valley. This is Washington State, this is British Columbia. If you look way off in the distance behind me in the mountains, you can see the cut. That is the 49th parallel. Every few years, each country takes their turn clearing 3 meters on each side of the border so that it can be spotted, so everybody knows where that border is. Now here it's a pretty sleepy part of the border, and we're just approaching a border marker. I have in fact done many videos from here over the years, and this is the actual obelisk, one of these border markers. I believe they're spaced about every mile or so. There you see Canada and acknowledgement of the Treaty of 1846, which established that. And obviously I'm standing in the excited states of America because I'm on this side of the border marker. That's a nice little piece of penis art, or is that a rocket? People put all sorts of stuff on these things over the years, and they do repaint them. The funny thing is look at that path there. People obviously are still smuggling or doing something. I remember years ago there would be all sorts of litter along the trail, which showed there's a lot of people crossing. Now nowadays they do have electronic surveillance, so if you were to cross, I'm sure, in fact, if I was to go beyond probably about 50 yards, I would probably trip some sort of sensor. And they do have all sorts of towers that keep track of all that kind of stuff. But I'm sure the animals trip those sensors all the time and drive the border guards crazy that patrol this area, because obviously a lot of these things are based on infrared, unless they actually have a camera, which they actually do have cameras that keep track of. There's some towers about a mile down that way where they can actually watch you if you want. Of course, nobody always knows where all these things are, but everybody's free on either side of the border to actually stand here, which is essentially what I'm doing, because who even knows if this is 100% correct to the foot? I mean, is the border a few inches this way, maybe a foot this way, who really knows? So, but you're allowed to stand here on either side of the border, regardless of where you come from. One time some people on horses came from the United States. But the thing that I wanted to talk about the most was borders are meant to be redrawn. And people forget this. And I find it fascinating how people think the borders are permanent, because they're absolutely human constructs and they're arbitrary. And in fact, as you can tell, there's no fencing here. The animals have no idea what country they're in, nor do they care. And you know, it's the same ecosystem, it's the same plants, same trees growing on both sides of the border, and nature does not care. Only humans care about these things. It's kind of like you care about your yard and keeping your yard clean, and maybe your neighbor doesn't. That's kind of what borders are. And I find that I think this border will inevitably change, and the borders within each country will inevitably change. If you look over the history of North America, there was a time when France owned a lot of land here. The Louisiana Purchase, where the United States grabbed a lot of land based on that sale. Then there was Seward's Folly. They thought it was a bad deal at the time, but the deal to buy Alaska from Russia. Smoking good deal nowadays. And we even forget that France is still actually here in North America. They still have a couple islands right off the coast of Newfoundland, St. Pierre and Miquelon. France is still here in North America. I'm not talking about the Caribbean and a bunch of islands that are European based, but right here in northern North America, they're still here. And the borders have been redrawn. Quebec essentially was New France, and now it's part of Canada. And the big question that lurks in my mind with the big divide between us conservatives and the left, so many people just can't get along, and so many people don't want to pay for the other people's agenda, rightfully so. And that inevitably, the division of that will cause borders to be withdrawn and redrawn and changed. And I find it fascinating, the movement for Eastern Oregon, the area around Bend. I've been there. It's very conservative, and they got a lot more in common with Idaho. And if that chunk of Oregon would just leave and join Idaho, it might make a lot of sense. But I think what would make even more sense is the idea of Cascadia. Now, envision in your head right now, if Alberta, British Columbia, Washington State, Idaho, and Oregon just formed one country called Cascadia. The amount of money we would have would be ridiculous, because within that jurisdiction we have a tremendous amount of timber from British Columbia, Oregon, and Washington. We have a tremendous amount of oil from Alberta. We've got the aerospace technology from Boeing. We've got, what do we got? Nike in Oregon. We got Microsoft in Seattle. A lot of very, very big global businesses and brands. And let's face it, northern climates tend to be a lot more productive. That's why when you look on the map, the countries that are along the equator tend to always be a little less productive. Life is easier. It's easier to grow your own food, easier to just get by, easier to don't have to use as much resources to get by. And always these northern climate countries always do better. Look at Italy. Northern Italy, a lot more productive than southern Italy. Just my theory. I know there's probably exceptions to the rule, but the idea of Cascadia forming and being a country would make a lot of sense for the people here. But it'll never happen, because who's going to give up their job? All the redundant government workers that have to be fired, all those governors and premiers that would be redundant, all the political parties that are indigenous to whatever jurisdiction, they'd all probably die. Everybody wants their little control, right? And doing what is right for the people isn't always what the politicians and the parties want to do. No, they don't. They want their little power. They've grabbed a little hold of power from you, and their taxation power, and they want to hold it. So joining forces and forming, a new republic, a new deal, new borders, they don't want to do that, because it would make too much sense and it would cost them power and money and influence. But it's coming inevitably. Look, in my lifetime, I've seen new countries emerge, new jurisdictions emerge. It happens. It just takes a little time. If you look at the former Yugoslavia, that erupted into many, many small countries. Even here in Canada, the newest jurisdiction is Nunavut. That used to just be the Northwest Territories. Now they're self-governing as a territorial government, and they became our 13th jurisdiction. So the borders are always changing. It's a question, will they change for the best or for the worst? And sometimes it takes a little revolution. Sometimes it just takes people being told that, hey, it's a great idea. It's going to save us money. We're going to be more powerful. But it just seems sometimes things are getting a little worse. People want more local control. And then you get a whole patchwork of nonsense laws where something's legal here, and then 10 miles away it's not legal, and then maybe the regulations are different. And it sounds great in practice, but it's a little wacky. Now, the only good thing that I like about laws in Canada is that particularly federal laws are the only criminal laws, so they're the same. So anywhere in this direction, if you know the law and you're legal to do something, the law applies whether you're on the West Coast or the East Coast or you're up in the Arctic. That kind of makes sense. Whereas down over here, I know you got federal law, but you got a whole patchwork of 50 states, and then you got Puerto Rico, and you got Washington, D.C. And boy, can you actually keep up with what the criminal laws are in every jurisdiction? Even the lawyers can't do that. Of course they can't. But that's part of the fun, I guess. That's how they make their living, because the more jurisdictions are... Oh, sorry, it's a little windy here all of a sudden. Sorry for the wind probably bothering you on the camera here. But I think they like it. The powers that be like so many jurisdictions, so they all can keep their fingers on the power and the taxation. But mark my words, this video will outlast me, and somebody's gonna see this video 100 years, 200 years from now, and they're gonna say, wow, that guy, he kind of really was visionary that all these borders were gonna change at some point. I think a lot of these borders are really gonna change, because they have to. And I think we got to start getting sensible. And let's face it, the lefties don't want to be with the righties, and us righties don't want to be with the lefties, nor do we want to pay for their agenda. And that's where we're at today, folks. So I figured it would be a fun little chat. You guys put your comments of what you think about borders and how arbitrary they are, and perhaps some of them, not all borders need to be redrawn, but some of them need to be redrawn for the benefit of the people. In fact, there was a secret plan back in the 80s that Saskatchewan was going to join the United States of America if Quebec left. We had a lot of issues in the past decades with Quebec wanting to have complete independent sovereignty. We've gave them enough concessions that for the time being, I think they realized that life would be a lot harder for them without the rest of us. And that debate does continue on a low level, but I don't think anybody with any common sense thinks for a minute that Quebec could do all right on their own without the rest of us Canadian taxpayers. So, but like I said, there was a plan. Saskatchewan was going to join America and be the 51st state if Quebec left, which would have completely redrawn the US and Canadian maps. But it didn't happen, but it could have. And the future is unknown. And I wonder what you think about maps being redrawn, particularly here in North America. So put your comments down below, and I better get going here because the wind's kicking up. Stay safe, keep your wheels in the ground. Talk to you soon. Over and out.
I've taken all the advice there is, and none of it has helped. I'm so tired of love songs, sick and tired of love songs. I'm so tired of you.
Can go to figure out what we've done, what we need to do. Yeah, I got you, I got you, I got you.